They said it was over. They said the king of the underworld, Sebastian Park, was gone, burned to ash in a Ferrari on the I-95. The funeral was a sea of black umbrellas and silent hitmen. The casket cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. But just as the priest raised his hand for the final blessing, the heavy oak doors of St. Jude's Cathedral didn't just open, they shattered. A waitress wearing a stained uniform and gripping a burner phone like a weapon walked into the den of lions. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She screamed 3 words that would start a war. "He's not dead." And when they opened that coffin, what was inside changed everything. This is the true story of Maya Higgins and the day she broke the Mafia. The neon sign of Lou's all-night diner buzzed with the irritating rhythmic hum of a dying fly. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in downtown Chicago, the kind of hour where the only customers were insomniacs, truck drivers, or people running from something. Maya Higgins wiped down the Formica counter for the 10th time that night. She was 24 with tired eyes and a name tag that hung slightly crooked on her teal uniform. Her life was a series of unpaid bills, a leaky apartment in the South Loop, and shifts that started when the rest of the city went to sleep. She wasn't looking for trouble. She was looking for tips. The bell above the door chimed a cheerful sound that felt out of place in the heavy silence. Maya didn't look up immediately. "Sit anywhere you liked. Coffee's fresh pie is yesterday's." The man who walked in didn't respond. He moved with a stiff, labored gait, sliding into booth 4, the one in the back corner furthest from the windows, shrouded in shadow. When Maya finally walked over with the pot of coffee, she stopped dead. He was handsome, violently so. Sharp cheekbones, raven black hair, slicked back with rain, and a suit that cost more than the diner itself. It was a midnight blue 3-piece Italian cut, but it was ruined. A dark, wet stain was blossoming across the white dress shirt, just above his ribs. Maya gripped the coffee pot. She had grown up in a rough neighborhood. She knew a gunshot wound when she saw one. "Sir," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm calling 911. "No," he rasped. His voice was low, like gravel grinding on velvet. He looked up, and his eyes were dark, almost black, burning with a feverish intensity. "No cops, no ambulances. You're bleeding out on my floor. I'm fine." He reached into his jacket with a shaking hand and pulled out a thick stack of $100 bills. He slammed it onto the sticky table. It was easily $5,000. "I need a first aid kit, vodka, and 10 minutes of your silence. Can you do that, Maya?" He read her name tag. The way he said it made her stomach flip. Maya looked at the money. It was enough to pay her rent for 6 months. She looked at the blood dripping onto the vinyl seat. Then she looked at the door. "Lock it," he commanded, his head lolling back against the booth. Maya made a choice that would dismantle her entire life. She walked to the front door, flipped the sign to "closed," and turned the deadbolt. For the next hour, the diner became a makeshift operating theater. Maya wasn't a nurse, but her father had been a triage medic in the army before the bottle took in. She knew how to pack a wound. She fetched the emergency kit from the back office and a bottle of cheap vodka from under the counter. The stranger who refused to give his name bit down on a leather belt while she poured alcohol over the graze on his ribs. It wasn't as deep as it looked. The bullet had passed through the flesh, but missed the vital organs. "Who did this to you?" she asked, her hands shaking as she taped the gauze down. He opened his eyes, sweat beading on his forehead. "Someone who thinks they're going to be king tomorrow." He studied her face, his gaze dissecting her. You have steady hands, Maya. I have nervous hands, she corrected. I'm just good at hiding it. Why did you help me? Because you were bleeding, she said simply, and because I need the money. He laughed a dry, pained sound. Honest. I like that. In my world, honesty is the first thing they kill. He sat up, wincing, and buttoned his ruined jacket. He took a heavy silver signet ring off his pinky finger. It was engraved with a crest, a tiger wrapped around a sword. He placed it on top of the stack of cash. If anyone asks, he said, locking eyes with her, I was never here. You were cleaning the grease traps. You saw nothing. Who are you? Maya whispered. He stood up, swaying slightly. I'm the guy who owes you a life. He walked out into the rain, disappearing into the dark alleyway behind the diner as quickly as he had arrived. Maya was left standing in the fluorescent hum of the diner, staring at a stack of cash and a silver ring that felt heavy with bad omens. She didn't know it then, but she had just saved Sebastian Park, the ruthlessly efficient head of the Park Syndicate, the most powerful Korean mafia organization in the Midwest. And by saving him, she had put a target on her own back. 3 days passed. The money was hidden in a shoebox under Maya's bed. The ring was on a chain around her neck, tucked beneath her uniform. She told no one. Not her landlord, Mr. Henderson. Not her shift manager, a greasy man named Carl. She kept waiting for the police to kick down her door, or for the man in the blue suit to come back. Instead, the news came on a rainy Thursday morning. Maya was sitting in the break room, scrolling through her phone, when the breaking news alert flashed across the muted TV mounted in the corner. Gang war in Chicago syndicate boss dead. Maya froze. She grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. The reporter, a frantic woman in a trench coat, was standing in front of a twisted heap of burning metal on the side of the highway. Authorities have confirmed that the vehicle belonged to Sebastian Park, the elusive figurehead of the Park crime family. The car, a rare Aston Martin, reportedly lost control and collided with a fuel tanker early this morning. Dental records are pending, but sources inside the department say there were no survivors. This marks the end of Park's 5-year reign over the city's underworld. The screen flashed a photo. It was a surveillance shot, grainy and black and white. But Maya recognized the jawline, the intensity of the eyes. It was him, the man from Booth 4, Sebastian Park. Dead, Maya whispered. She felt a strange coldness wash over her. It wasn't grief she didn't know him, but it was a jarring sense of wrongness. She thought back to that night. The wound on his side. He had been hurt, yes, but he was strong. He was calculating. A man like that doesn't just lose control of his car on a straight stretch of highway. And then her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. No caller ID. Maya stared at it. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She swiped answer. Hello. Silence. Then a series of clicks. Tap, 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 tap. It sounded like "Butu hold" or a signal. Who is this? She demanded. A voice distorted by a heavy digital filter spoke. The funeral is at St. Jude's, Sunday, noon. Wear black. Who are you? Check the ring, Maya. The line went dead. Maya pulled the silver ring out from her shirt. She had looked at it 100 times, but she had never looked inside it. She held it up to the harsh fluorescent light of the break room. Inside the band, etched in microscopic script, was not a hallmark or a date. It was a sequence of numbers and letters. SP, Protocol 4. She didn't know what Protocol 4 was, but she knew one thing. Dead men don't make phone calls. If Sebastian Park was dead, who called her? And if he wasn't dead, why was the world mourning him? The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. It was a trap, or a test, or a play. Someone wanted the world to think Sebastian Park was dead. And for some reason, that same person wanted a waitress from the South Loop to be at his funeral. Maya went home and paced her small apartment. She should throw the ring in the river. She should take the $5,000 and move to Ohio. She should forget that she ever saw him. But she couldn't. She remembered his eyes. I'm the guy who owes you a life. If he was alive, he was in trouble. And if he was dead, someone had murdered him and was getting away with it. Saturday night, Maya went to a thrift store in Wicker Park. She bought a black dress that fit a little too tightly and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed her face. She spent the last of her tips on a pair of heels she couldn't really walk in. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a witness to a ghost story. Sunday morning brought a torrential downpour. The sky was the color of a bruise. Maya took 3 buses to get to St. Jude's Cathedral, a Gothic monstrosity of stone and stained glass on the wealthy side of town. The street was lined with black SUVs. Men in dark suits with earpieces stood on every corner scanning the crowd. These weren't police. They were soldiers. Maya pulled her coat tighter and walked toward the entrance. She expected to be stopped. She expected a hand on her shoulder, a gun in her ribs. But the security hulking men with scars and stone faces let her pass. It was as if they were expecting her. Or perhaps to them, she was simply invisible. Just another mourner in a sea of hypocrisy. She slipped into the back pew just as the organ music swelled. The church was packed. The air smelled of lilies and expensive cologne. At the front, a closed casket made of mahogany and gold sat on a dais. A portrait of Sebastian stood next to it. He looked regal, terrifying, and very, very dead. In the front row sat the family, or what passed for it. There was an older woman weeping into a lace handkerchief, his mother. And next to her, a man who looked like a sharper, crueler version of Sebastian. That had to be Victor Park, the brother, the rumored wild dog of the syndicate. He wasn't crying. He was checking his watch. Maya's hands clenched in her lap. She felt the ring burning against her skin. "Check the ring," the voice had said. She pulled it out, hiding it in her palm. She rubbed her thumb over the inscription. Protocol 4. Suddenly she remembered something from the diner. When Sebastian was stitching himself up, he had muttered something to himself. At the time, she thought it was delirious rambling. Now the memory sharpened. Protocol 4. Emptiness is the only safety. Emptiness. Maya looked at the casket. It was closed. Closed caskets usually meant the body was too damaged to be viewed. A car crash, a fire. It made sense. But if Sebastian was alive, if he was alive, he wasn't in that box. The priest began to speak. "We are gathered here to mourn a son, a brother, a leader." Maya's heart was pounding so hard, she thought the man next to her could hear it. She looked at Victor again. He was smirking. A tiny, barely perceptible smirk. He knew. He knew the casket was empty. Or worse, he knew what was really in it, and he was happy about it. Maya realized then that if the funeral finished, if that box went into the ground, The truth would be buried with it. Sebastian, wherever he was, would be erased. Victor would take the crown, and whatever game Sebastian was playing would end in checkmate against him. She had to stop it. The priest raised his hand. "Let us pray for his soul." Maya stood up. Her legs felt like jelly. The silence in the church was absolute. She stepped out of the pew. Her heels clicked loudly on the marble floor. Click, click, click. Heads turned. The weeping mother looked up. Victor turned around, his eyes narrowing. "Sit down," a security guard whispered harshly, stepping toward her. Maya ignored him. She walked faster. The clicking became a run. "Stop her," Victor shouted, standing up. Maya reached the center aisle. She was 20 feet from the casket. "He's not dead," she screamed. The sound tore through the cathedral like a gunshot. Gasps erupted. The priest froze. "He is not dead," Maya yelled again, her voice breaking. She pointed at the casket. "That box is a lie." Victor's face went purple. "Get that crazy bitch out of here." 3 men rushed her. Maya didn't fight them. She didn't run. She did the only thing she could think of. She reached into her dress and pulled out the silver ring, holding it high in the air. "Protocol 4, she shrieked. "He gave me Protocol 4. The security guards froze. The code word seemed to paralyze them. They looked at Victor, confused. Victor's eyes went wide. For a second, he looked terrified. "Open it," Maya yelled, pointing at the mahogany box. "If he's in there, open it." The church was in chaos. People were standing, shouting. The mother was screaming. Victor pulled a gun from his jacket right there in the house of God. Kill her. But it was too late. The confusion had bought her time. A man in the front row, an older man with a cane, perhaps a consigliere, stood up. He looked at Victor, then at Maya, then at the ring. "Open the casket," the old man commanded. His voice was quiet, but it carried more weight than Victor's shouting. "No," Victor roared. 2 large men loyal to the old man stepped forward and shoved the priest aside. They unlatched the heavy gold locks of the coffin. The heavy lid creaked open. Maya held her breath. The entire church leaned forward. The coffin wasn't empty. But Sebastian Park wasn't inside. Inside the satin-lined box lay a mannequin. A store mannequin dressed in Sebastian's suit, with a single red rose taped to its plastic mouth. And pinned to the chest of the mannequin was a note written in bold black marker. "You missed." The church erupted into pandemonium. Victor looked like he had seen a ghost. Maya stood alone in the aisle, the ring clutched in her hand, realizing she had just started a war she had no idea how to finish. The world outside the SUV was a blur of rain-slicked asphalt and flashing lights. Maya was wedged in the back seat between 2 mountains of men who smelled of stale tobacco and gun oil. Across from her sat the old man from the church, the one who had ordered the casket opened. He hadn't spoken a word since they peeled out of the cathedral driveway, leaving Victor screaming on the steps. Maya's heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She still clutched the silver ring so tightly the crest was imprinted into her palm. "Where are you taking me?" she asked, her voice sounding smaller than she intended. The old man looked up from his phone. His eyes were milky with age, but sharp as razor wire. "To a place where Victor cannot find you. Yet. I want to go home," Maya said, though she knew, even as she said it, that home was no longer an option. "Home." The old man chuckled a dry, rattling sound. "Miss Higgins, 10 minutes ago you humiliated Victor Park in front of the 5 families. You exposed his coup. You are currently the most hunted woman in Chicago. If you go home, you will be dead before you unlock your front door. Maya swallowed hard. Who are you? I am Silas, he said. I served Sebastian's father, and I serve Sebastian. Which brings me to the question of you. He leaned forward, the leather of the seat creaking. How did you get that ring? I told you, Maya said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. He gave it to me. Sebastian does not give things, Silas said coldly. He takes, or he trades. What did you trade him? He was bleeding, Maya said, lifting her chin. I stitched him up. He gave me the ring and told me to hide. Silas studied her for a long, uncomfortable minute. He gave you the Praetorian ring, the signet of the acting head. Do you know what that means in our laws, Miss Higgins? That he owes me. It means you are under his protection, Silas corrected. It means that technically for as long as you hold that ring, you speak with his voice. You just declared war on his behalf. The car swerved sharply, exiting the highway and heading toward the industrial district. They drove past skeletal warehouses and rusted shipping containers until they reached a nondescript concrete building at the end of a dead-end street. The garage door rolled up, and the SUV swallowed to the darkness inside. Out! One of the guards grunted. Maya was marched through a maze of corridors, past rooms filled with servers humming in the dark, until they reached a heavy steel door. Silas punched a code into the keypad. Wait here, Silas said. Do not touch anything. The door slammed shut, and the lock engaged with a heavy thud. Maya was alone. She turned around. The room wasn't a cell. It was an apartment, stark, modern, and expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the gray, choppy waters of Lake Michigan. There was a leather couch, a fully stocked bar, and a massive, abstract painting that looked like a splash of blood on snow. It was a cage, but a gilded one. Maya paced the floor. Adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold, creeping exhaustion. She had just screamed at a funeral. She had just been kidnapped. And the man she saved was apparently playing 4D chess with her life. She walked to the window, watching the rain lash against the glass. You jerk, she whispered to the empty room. You absolute jerk. I've been called worse. Maya spun around. Emerging from the shadows of the hallway, she hadn't noticed was Sebastian Park. He looked different than he had in the diner. The blood was gone. He was wearing a black turtleneck and gray slacks, looking effortlessly lethal. He moved without a sound, a predator in his own territory. But she noticed a stiffness in his step. The wound she had stitched was still healing. You're alive, she said, the breath leaving her lungs. Disappointed. He walked to the bar and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal glass. I saved your life, Maya said, her anger flaring up to mask her fear. And you repaid me by making me a target. Sebastian took a sip, his dark eyes watching her over the rim of the glass. I repaid you by giving you the most powerful object in my arsenal. That ring is worth more than this building. I don't want your ring. Maya pulled the chain off her neck and threw it at him. He caught it in mid-air with reflexes that were terrifyingly fast. He looked at the silver band, then back at her. You kept it, he said softly. And you came. I honestly didn't think you would. Why? Maya demanded. Why drag me into this? Why fake your death? Because there is a rat in my organization, Sebastian said, his voice dropping an octave. Someone sabotaged my car. Someone told the hitmen where I would be that night I came to your diner. If I hadn't rolled out of the car before the crash, he let the sentence hang. I needed them to think they succeeded, I needed to see who would smile at my funeral. Victor, Maya said. He smiled. Victor always smiles when he smells blood, Sebastian said. But Victor is a hammer. He's not smart enough to plan this. He's a puppet. He walked closer to her, invading her personal space. Maya held her ground, though her instincts screamed at her to run. He smelled of rain and expensive scotch. You ruined the plan, Maya, he said, looking down at her. You were supposed to come to the wake, find Silas, and give him the ring quietly. That was Protocol 4, a silent transfer of power. I didn't know the protocol, Maya snapped. I just saw them closing the lid. I thought you were in there suffocating or something. I panicked. Sebastian stared at her. For a second, the mask of the Mafia Don slipped, and she saw genuine surprise in his eyes. You thought I was buried alive, he repeated. Yes. And you decided to fight an entire room of armed gangsters to save me. I guess so. A strange expression crossed his face. It wasn't quite a smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched. You are either the bravest person I've ever met, or the most foolish. Probably the second one, Maya muttered. So what happens now? Can I go? Sebastian laughed, a dark, humorless sound. He walked to the window and looked out at the stormy lake. Victor knows you're alive. He knows you have the ring. He knows you ruined his coronation. There is a $500,000 bounty on your head as of 10 minutes ago. Maya's knees gave out. She sank onto the leather sofa. 500. You can't go back to the diner. Sebastian continued listing the facts like items on a receipt. Your apartment is being watched. Your friends, if you have any, will be leveraged. So I'm dead, Maya whispered. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and angry. I saved you. And now I'm dead. Sebastian turned from the window. He walked over to her and crouched down so they were eye level. He took her hand, her rough, waitress-worn hand, in his. His skin was cool. No, he said fiercely. You are not dead. You are with me. He placed the ring back into her palm and closed her fingers over it. I have a new plan. But you are not going to like it. What is it? Maya asked, dread pooling in her stomach. The syndicate operates on archaic laws, Sebastian said. To take back my empire without a civil war that burns Chicago to the ground, I need to challenge Victor legally before the board of directors. But I cannot just walk in. I need a witness, someone who holds my proxy. He paused, searching her eyes. You have the ring. You saved the king. According to the old laws, that makes you untouchable. If you are part of the family. I'm not part of your family, Maya said. You will be, Sebastian said. Starting tomorrow, you are not Maya the waitress. You are Maya, my fiancée. Maya choked on a laugh. You're what? My fiancé, Sebastian said, his face deadly serious. It's the only way. If you are my betrothed, an attack on you is an attack on the bloodline. It forces the other families to protect you. It buys us time. I can't lie to mafia bosses, Maya said, shaking her head. I serve coffee. I don't do this. You walked into a church and screamed at a killer, Sebastian said intensely. You can do this. I will teach you. I will protect you. And when this is over, I will give you $10 million and a new life anywhere in the world. $10 million. Maya looked at the ring in her hand. She looked at Sebastian, the man who had brought chaos into her life, but who was now offering her the only way out. And if I say no, then I open that door, Sebastian said softly, and you take your chances with Victor. Maya closed her eyes. She thought of her leak-stained ceiling, the rude customers, The endless cycle of poverty. Then she thought of Victor's face when he pulled the gun. She opened her eyes. They were hard. 10 million, she said. And I want the red velvet cake from the wedding menu. Sebastian's lip curled into a genuine smirk. Deal. The next 24 hours were a blur of pain and silk. The safe house was actually the penthouse of a building Sebastian owned under a shell company. It was a fortress of glass and steel. Maya was not allowed to sleep. Stand up straight, Silas barked, hitting her calves with a cane. You are the future wife of Sebastian Park. You do not slouch like you are waiting for a bus. Maya gritted her teeth and straightened her spine. I'm tired, Silas. Dead people are tired, Silas retorted. Queens are alert. Sebastian sat in the corner of the room, watching the proceedings like a director auditing an actor. He was on his laptop, organizing the logistics of his return, but Maya felt his eyes on her constantly. They had brought in a team, a tailor who measured Maya without speaking, a hairstylist who transformed her messy brown ponytail into a sleek, glossy bob that framed her face like a helmet, a makeup artist who taught her how to contour her cheekbones to look sharper, meaner. Your eyes are too kind, Sebastian noted during a break. He walked over, handing her a bottle of water. Sorry, I haven't murdered enough people, Maya snapped, taking the water. It's not about murder, Sebastian said, his voice surprisingly gentle. It's about indifference. When we walk into that boardroom tomorrow, you cannot look at them like people. You have to look at them like furniture. Expensive, dangerous furniture. How do you do it? Maya asked, looking at him. How do you turn it off? I don't, Sebastian said. He touched his side where the wound was. I just focus on the goal. Everything else is noise. Who is the rat? Maya asked. You said Victor is a puppet. Who's pulling the strings? Sebastian's face darkened. That is what we are going to find out tonight. He led her to the walk-in closet. Hanging in the center was a dress. It was emerald green velvet with a slit that went up to her thigh and a neckline that plunged dangerously low. Wear this, Moll, he said. Green is the color of money and envy. It's a lot, Maya said, touching the fabric. It's armor, Sebastian corrected. When Maya stepped out of the bathroom an hour later, the room went silent. The dress fit like a second skin. Her makeup was flawless, her lips painted a deep blood red. She was wearing 4-inch stilettos that made her legs look miles long. Sebastian stood up slowly. He stared at her, and for the first time he looked unsettled. Well? Maya asked, feeling self-conscious. Do I look like a mob wife? No. Sebastian said, his voice rough. He walked over to her, stopping inches away. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her jawline. You look like a queen who just buried her king. The air between them crackled. It wasn't just fear or adrenaline anymore. It was something hotter, magnetic. The ring, he whispered. Maya held out her hand. Sebastian took the heavy silver signet ring and slid it onto her thumb. It was too big for her other fingers. Then he placed a second ring on her finger. A massive diamond, cold and heavy. Showtime, he said. The meeting was held in the back room of the Gilded Cage, a high-end jazz club that served as neutral ground for the Chicago families. The atmosphere was thick with cigar smoke and tension. At the long mahogany table sat the heads of the 5 families. There was Don Moretti, fat and wheezing, the triad leader, Gian, the Irish boss, O'Malley, and at the head of the table, sitting in Sebastian's chair, was Victor. Victor looked triumphant, He was drinking champagne, laughing with O'Malley. "We need to discuss the territory split," Victor was saying, "now that my brother is gone. Is he—" The voice cut through the room like a blade. The double doors swung open. Sebastian walked in. He wasn't limping. He looked powerful, revitalized, and utterly furious. And on his arm, walking stride for stride with him, was Maya. The room went dead silent. Don Moretti dropped his cigar. Victor's face drained of color. He stood up, knocking over his glass. "You... I saw the car burn." "You saw what I wanted you to see, brother," Sebastian said smoothly. He pulled out a chair for Maya. She sat down slowly, crossing her legs, fixing Victor with a look of pure, icy indifference, just as she had practiced. Sebastian remained standing. "You tried to kill me. You failed. And in your haste to claim my throne, you forgot the most important rule of our family. Which is—" Victor spat his hand, twitching toward his jacket. "The king never travels alone," Sebastian said. He placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "Gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to my fiancée, Maya, and the keeper of my proxy." Maya raised her hand. The silver signet ring flashed under the chandelier light. The other bosses murmured. The proxy ring was absolute. It meant Sebastian had legally designated her as his voice. "This is ridiculous," Victor shouted. "She's a nobody, a waitress. She is the woman who saved my life," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a growl. "And she is the future Mrs. Park. Insult her again. Victor and I will cut out your tongue right here on this table." Victor looked around the room. He was losing them. The other bosses were impressed by Sebastian's survival and intrigued by the mystery woman. But then a voice spoke from the shadows in the corner of the room. A voice that made Sebastian stiffen. A fiancé. A woman stepped into the light. She was tall, blonde, and beautiful in a terrifying surgical way. Maya felt Sebastian's hand tighten on her shoulder. "Hello, Sebastian," the woman said, smiling. "You seem to have forgotten something. You're already engaged." Sebastian's jaw clenched. "Elena." Maya looked up at Sebastian. He hadn't mentioned an ex or a current fiancé. "Who is she?" Maya whispered. "The daughter of the Russian mob," Sebastian hissed under his breath. "And the reason I needed you." Elena walked over to the table, her eyes locked on Maya. "That's a lovely ring, sweetie," she said, her voice dripping with poison. "But I think you're sitting in my seat." The twist had landed. Sebastian hadn't just faked his death to escape Victor. He had faked it to escape a political marriage that would have merged the Korean and Russian syndicates into a monster he couldn't control. And now, Maya wasn't just fighting Victor. She was in the middle of a love triangle with the most dangerous woman in the Eastern Hemisphere. Maya looked at Elena. She looked at the smirking Victor. She looked at the board, waiting for blood. She took a sip of Victor's spilled champagne. "I don't see your name on it," Maya said coolly. Sebastian looked down at her. And for a split second, she saw a flash of pure pride in his eyes. The war had just begun. The air in the gilded cage didn't just feel heavy. It felt pressurized like the deep ocean right before a submarine hull buckles. The woman standing before them, the Russian heiress, smiled with teeth that were too white and eyes that were too cold. "Elena," Sebastian corrected himself, his voice smooth, but his grip on Maya's shoulder bruising. "My apologies. I haven't seen you since the incident in Moscow. You look alive. Everyone, this is Tatiana Volkov, the woman who thinks she owns the northern ports." Sebastian squeezed Maya's shoulder once, a signal. "Play along." "This is the danger." Tatiana laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Tatiana Elena, it doesn't matter what you call me, darling. What matters is the contract our fathers signed. A union of the Park and Volkov families. And I don't see a waitress clause in the fine print. She circled the table, trailing a manicured hand along the shoulders of the nervous board members. She stopped behind Victor. Victor looked up, sweating. He was clearly terrified of her, which told Maya everything she needed to know. Tatiana was the predator, here, not Victor. So, Tatiana said, leaning against the table, her silk dress shimmering. You fake your death, you skip our engagement party, and you resurface with her. She looked at Maya with genuine amusement. Tell me, little waitress, do you know how to strip a Glock 19? Do you know how to launder money through a shell corporation in the Caymans? Do you know which wine pairs best with revenge? Maya's heart thundered against her ribs. She looked at the woman who radiated power and money, everything Maya didn't have. She felt small. She felt like a fraud in a stolen dress. But then she looked at Sebastian. He wasn't looking at Tatiana. He was looking at her, waiting. Emptiness is the only safety, he had said. Maya took a deep breath. She didn't know guns. She didn't know laundering. But she knew people. She had served coffee to drunks, addicts, grieving widows and liars for 6 years. She knew how to read a bully. Maya picked up her fork, stabbed a piece of steak from Victor's abandoned plate, and took a bite. She chewed slowly, maintaining eye contact with Tatiana. I don't know about guns, Maya said, her voice steady. But I know that you're wearing a knockoff Chanel scarf. The stitching on the hem is wrong. The room went deadly silent. Tatiana's smile faltered. Her hand flew to her neck. Maya hadn't a clue about fashion. It was a bluff, a gamble. But she saw the flash of insecurity in Tatiana's eyes. And Maya continued, leaning forward. I know that a woman who has to list her resume to threaten a waitress is insecure about her position. If you were really the queen, Tatiana, you wouldn't need to bark so loud. Don Moretti, the fat Italian boss, let out a low chuckle. Tatiana's eyes narrowed into slits. You have a sharp tongue. It comes with the territory, Maya said. She turned to the board. Sebastian Park is the king. I am his choice. You can honor the old laws and the proxy ring, or you can side with Victor, a man who couldn't even organize a proper funeral, and his Russian friend, here. She gestured to Victor, who was currently trying to wipe champagne off his pants. He looked pathetic. The Park Syndicate does not bow to Russia, Sebastian said, his voice finalizing the matter. He looked at the board. A vote now. Who stands with me? Silas, the old loyalist, raised his hand immediately. I stand with Sebastian. Don Moretti looked at Tatiana, then at Sebastian. He raised his hand. Sebastian. One by one the hands went up. Even the triad leader nodded. Victor was isolated. Tatiana was isolated. Tatiana looked at the room, realizing she had lost the tactical advantage. She smoothed her scarf, her composure returning instantly. Very well, she said. The board has spoken. For now. She walked over to Sebastian and kissed him on the cheek. It looked affectionate, but Maya saw her whisper something in his ear. Sebastian's jaw tightened. Then Tatiana turned to Maya. She leaned in close, smelling of expensive perfume and decay. Enjoy the victory lap, Maya, she whispered. But be careful. In this world, the fiancés are usually the first to bleed. She turned and walked out, her heels clicking like a ticking clock. Victor scrambled after her, like a beaten dog. The door closed. Sebastian exhaled a long, shuddering breath. He leaned heavily on the table. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain from his wound was returning. Clear the room, he ordered Silas. As the bosses filed out, Sebastian turned to Maya. He looked at her with a new expression. It wasn't just gratitude. It was respect. "The scarf?" he asked, a faint smile touching his lips. "Was it really a fake? I have no idea." Maya admitted, her hands finally starting to shake. "I just saw a loose thread." Sebastian threw his head back and laughed, a genuine loud laugh that transformed his face. "You are dangerous, Maya Higgins. Remind me never to play poker with you." "Can we go?" Maya asked, feeling the exhaustion hit her. "I want to take these shoes off." "Yes," Sebastian said. He offered her his arm. "Let's go home." But as they walked out into the cool night air, Maya felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the wind. Tatiana's threat lingered. The fiancés are usually the first to bleed. The honeymoon phase of their fake engagement lasted exactly 48 hours. Trapped in the penthouse fortress, their lives became a strange domestic stalemate. Maya learned that Sebastian slept 4 hours a night and had a scar on his shoulder from a knife fight in Seoul. Sebastian learned that Maya hummed when she was nervous and missed her cat Barnaby. On the second night, a storm rolled in over Chicago, lightning fracturing the sky above the lake. Maya sat on the rug, reading a dossier on the 5 families. Sebastian stood at the window staring out at the city he ruled, but could no longer trust. "Why me?" Maya asked, suddenly breaking the silence. "You could have hired an actress or a model. Why did you give me the ring that night in the diner? I was just a stranger." Sebastian turned, the lightning casting half his face in shadow. "You weren't just a stranger. You were the only person in 10 years who looked at me and didn't see the boss. You saw a man bleeding and you didn't run." He walked over and sat on the rug beside her, discarding his usual stiffness. "My whole life, people have only wanted things from me. Power, money, protection. But you gave me your first aid kit and a bottle of vodka. You saved me for free." He reached out his fingers, brushing hers. The air in the room shifted, becoming heavy and magnetic. "That is why, Maya. Because you are the only real thing in my life." Maya's breath hitched. She leaned in, drawn by the gravity of him. Sebastian's gaze dropped to her lips. Crash. The sound was deafening. The floor-to-ceiling window behind them exploded inward. Sebastian tackled Maya instantly, shielding her body as shards of safety glass rained down on them. "Move," he roared. A red laser dot danced across the rug where they had been sitting seconds ago. "Snipers." Sebastian dragged her behind the heavy marble kitchen island as suppressed bullets chewed up the floor. "Thwip, thwip." "Silas." Sebastian yelled into his comms. "Perimeter breached, code red, static." "Silas." Nothing. Sebastian looked at Maya, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek. "Silas is gone." They took out the security. The elevator doors pinged open. Heavy tactical boots hit the floor. "Check the bedroom," a voice commanded, a Russian accent. "We have to move," Sebastian whispered. "Panic room in the master closet. Run on 3. They sprinted across the open hallway as bullets zipped past, smashing vases and tearing through drywall. They slid into the master bedroom, and Sebastian slammed and locked the heavy oak door. He ran to the closet keypad. He punched in the code. Access denied. Sebastian went pale. They changed the codes. Only 2 people have admin access, me and Silas. The bedroom door splintered open. 5 men in tactical gear stormed in. At the lead was Tatiana holding a gold-plated Desert Eagle, and beside her, leaning on his cane, was Silas. "I am sorry, Sebastian," Silas said softly. But you are too emotional. You let a waitress distract you. The syndicate needs stability. Sebastian stood in front of Maya unarmed. She will eat you alive, Silas. Perhaps, Silas said, but the check clears. Tatiana raised the gun, aiming at Sebastian's heart. Any last words? I'm sorry, Sebastian said to Maya. Don't be, Maya said. She reached into her pocket and gripped the burner phone she had kept. Then she screamed. Wait. The accounts. Tatiana paused. What? Protocol 4? Maya lied desperately, holding up the heavy silver ring on her thumb. He transferred the Cayman accounts to me. It's biometric, linked to my heartbeat. If you kill me, $3 billion vanishes. It was a massive bluff channeled from every spy movie she'd ever seen. She's lying, Silas said. Is she? Sebastian played along instantly. Why do you think I gave the ring to a nobody? She's the vault. Tatiana hesitated, greed warring with bloodlust. Check it, she ordered Silas. Silas stepped forward. As he got close, Sebastian moved. He didn't go for Silas. He grabbed the bedside lamp and smashed the bulb, plunging the room into semi-darkness. Run, Sebastian yelled, shoving Silas into Tatiana. The gun went off. Bang, but the bullet went wild. Sebastian grabbed Maya's hand. They didn't run for the door. They ran for the balcony. Sebastian, we're on the 40th floor. Maya screamed as they hit the rain-slicked terrace. Trust me. He pointed to the swimming pool on the terrace 2 floors below. It was a suicidal jump. The tactical team poured onto the balcony behind them. Sebastian didn't give her a choice. He grabbed her waist and pulled her over the edge. They fell through the rain, a terrifying, weightless plunge into the dark. Splash! Cold water swallowed them both. Maya woke up, coughing up chlorine and rainwater in a dark maintenance alley 3 blocks from the tower. Sebastian had somehow dragged them both from the pool through the service exit and into the streets before collapsing against a rusted dumpster. His shirt was soaked in blood. The stitches in his side had torn during the fall. We have to move, he rasped, trying to stand but sliding back down. His face was grey. Silas has the network, the accounts, the soldiers. We have nothing. We have this, Maya said, pulling the soggy burner phone from her pocket. The screen flickered to life, a small miracle. It's useless, Sebastian muttered, his eyes unfocused. Silas knows my playbook. He knows every safe house, every favor I'm owed. We lost Maya. Maya looked at the broken king of the underworld. He was playing by rules of honor and hierarchy rules that had just gotten him killed. You lost because you played Mafia. Maya said, her voice hardening. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. We stop playing by your rules. We play by diner rules. Diner rules. When a customer tries to walk out on the bill, you don't shoot them, she said fiercely. You lock the door and call the biggest, meanest guy in the room to make them pay. Who is the biggest guy? Maya dialed a number. The one person Tatiana and Silas forgot to kill. The one person who hates them more than we do. She hit call. Who? Sebastian asked. Victor. Sebastian's eyes went wide. He'll kill us on sight. No, he won't, Maya said. Because I'm going to offer him the one thing he wants more than your head. The phone clicked. What? Victor's voice was drunk and slurred. Victor, it's Maya. Shut up and listen, she commanded. Tatiana and Silas just took the tower. They tried to kill Sebastian. And once he's gone, who do you think is next? The Russians don't want a partner, Victor. They want the whole city. Silence hung heavy on the line. "I'm at 5th and Main," Maya continued. "Bring a car, bring your boys, and bring a first aid kit. We're going to take your house back." "Why should I trust you?" Victor sneered. "You made me look like a fool." "Because I'm the only one with the biometric codes to the offshore accounts." Maya lied smoothly. "If I die, the money burns. If you help us, Sebastian retires, and you get the crown." Sebastian started to protest, but Maya squeezed his hand. "Trust me, 5 minutes," Victor growled. The line went dead. The final confrontation took place at dawn. Inside the penthouse, Silas and Tatiana clinked glasses of Sebastian's rare scotch, watching the sun rise over the lake. They believed the king was dead at the bottom of the pool. The elevator chimed. "I told the guards no interruptions." Silas frowned. The doors slid open. It wasn't the guards. It was Victor Park holding a sawed-off shotgun. Behind him stood 20 of his most violent enforcers, filling the hallway with the smell of leather and impending violence. And walking between them, wet, bloody, but standing tall, were Sebastian and Maya. "Surprise," Maya said. Tatiana reached for the gold pistol on the table, but 3 red laser dots instantly appeared on her chest. "Don't," Victor said, racking the shotgun. "I've been wanting to shoot a Russian all week." Silas stood up, his face draining of color. "Victor, we can share. You betrayed the blood." Victor spat. "Park blood." Sebastian stepped forward. He was leaning heavily on Maya, but his presence filled the room. "It's over, Silas. It's over when I say it is," Silas roared. Desperate, he lunged for a hidden panic button under the mahogany desk. Maya saw the movement. She didn't think. She reacted. She grabbed a heavy crystal decanter from the side table and hurled it with all her strength. It smashed into Silas's hand with a sickening crunch. He screamed, clutching his shattered fingers, collapsing to the floor. Tatiana looked at Victor's shotgun, then at the broken window where Sebastian had jumped. She raised her hands slowly. "I will not go to jail." "You won't," Sebastian said coldly. "This is private property. We don't call the police." Victor stepped forward, signaling his men to grab them. "I'll handle the trash, brother." Sebastian nodded, then turned to face Victor. The room went silent. "You offered him the crown," Sebastian murmured to Maya. "I did," she whispered. Sebastian looked at his brother. He pulled the heavy silver proxy ring, the one that had started this entire war, out of his pocket. He tossed it through the air. Victor caught it. He stared at the silver tiger crest, stunned. "Why?" Victor asked, looking from the ring to Sebastian. Sebastian looked down at Maya. He wiped a smudge of dirt from her cheek, his eyes softening. "Because I found something better than being king." He put his arm around Maya, turning his back on the empire, the money and the power. "Let's go, Maya. I think you mentioned something about red velvet cake." 6 months later. The afternoon sun bathed the hills of Tuscany in gold. The air smelled of lemons and fresh basil. Maya wiped down the counter of the small cafe. Old habits died hard. The bell above the door chimed. A man walked in. He looked healthy, the deep lines of stress gone from his face. He wore a linen shirt and sunglasses, looking less like a Mafia don and more like a local. "Table for 2?" Maya asked, smiling. "Actually," Sebastian said, taking off his sunglasses to reveal those intense, dark eyes. "I'm looking for a job. I hear you need a dishwasher." "I don't know," Maya teased, leaning over the counter. "It's high pressure. The boss is very demanding." I think I can handle her, Sebastian said. He walked around the counter, pulling her close. He kissed her, not a desperate kiss in the rain or a staged kiss for a boardroom, but a kiss of pure, quiet peace. At a nearby table, a tourist reading an American newspaper gasped. He pointed to a "Where Are They Now" article featuring an old photo of the Chicago crime boss. "He's not dead," the tourist whispered to his wife. "Look at the photo. They never found the body." Maya looked at the newspaper, then back at Sebastian, who was already rolling up his sleeves to help her carry a tray. "No," she whispered, smiling. "He's right here, and that is the story of how a waitress brought down the Mafia. But here's the craziest part. Rumors say that the park syndicate in Chicago is now run by Victor. But every year, a mysterious donation of exactly $5,000, the price of a first aid kit, and silence is made to the diner where Maya used to work. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button. It helps the algorithm more than you know. Did Maya make the right choice, trusting Victor? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more twisted romance dramas like this, hit subscribe and ring the bell. I'll see you in the next video.